that this rural environment generates strong characteristic for development of Norco as a new equestrian focal point in Southern California. Well, I've been here for 28 years and I've seen so many things come in to try to change this city, and I have fought for the last 25 years to keep this lifestyle like I moved out here to live and enjoy. I've seen people come in and want to change things overnight and they wind up leaving town. But as an example, I'm not the only one that's fought for this lifestyle. There's a former mayor sitting right over here and a former mayor sitting back over here that they did the same thing. They beat their head against the wall to keep our lifestyle. I don't have anything against anybody else's culture, but we have our culture here in the city of Norco, Horsetown, USA. And I remember when Kathy and I beat our heads against the wall to get that little cowboy hat put on Cowboy Bob up here. We got beat out of one of them. There was supposed to be two of them up there, but one of them we got shortchanged. And I do not want to change our lifestyle. And like Councilman Newton said, coming down the freeway, you'll be able to see that before you see the hotel. And I know how hard this group has fought to get that hotel and make the progress they have. It took them 15 years to get permission to go in there and fix the roof on it where they preserve it. And that's a beautiful facility, and someday it'll be open. And I'm sorry, I just don't think that your building fits our community. It's a agriculture zoned piece of property over there, and I just don't see that I can support it because I fought too hard to keep this lifestyle, and I can see big changes coming. Well, thank you.
I actually have a few questions, so forgive me. The first one, just a question. So you said the dome was essentially so that it could be visible for many, many miles. So it has no religious significance, it's more of just that we're here, correct?
I believe so. It's written yet.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, it is not a temple.
Okay,
So it is not a significance to have a dome.
So is there anything in your architecture at this point that has any significant meaning to your religion?
No.
So there's nothing in your architecture that has any significant meaning to your religion?
No.
So just so I'm clear, there's nothing in the architecture that has significant meaning to your religion?
Yeah, last time in a planning commission meeting, they were asking this really just, that we were answering the question, but at the end, we never got a chance to be over to be able to get
I just wanted to make sure that was out there. In terms of, it's not just a Western element. I got here in '61, we fought for trails, and ironically, you're actually on a property that oversees the largest pre-planned equestrian community in the nation when it was built, and John was here. It was a bloody battle because everybody was afraid. So those are half-acre lots. They're not supposed to have 2 stories. But, somebody lost the specific plan a couple years ago. Anyway, the point is, as you're overlooking that, also, just for the record, the 2 churches that are there, when the church on the hill was built, there was nothing west of it. It was a huge open field, and the Mormon church, I think they had just begun a new development, but it was essentially in the middle of nowhere. And those are all 3 of the churches on that street have been there for decades. So I've heard comments, well, if they can be there, so can we. But these were churches that were built, Church on the Hill was built more than 50 years ago. It's older than our city. And I'm not sure what year I remember playing softball at Mormon Church and overlooking nothing except the prison. In terms of the Narconian, the reason that we're so adamant about it is if you look at the Narconian, again, as I stated, there is a certain architecture. But if you look at Norco College, if you look at the buildings adjacent to it, they copy the Spanish colonial style. And so literally it's been influencing architecture surrounding it for the last 85 years. And so one of the things that we've been really fighting for, and we've been really lucky that councils and planning commissions have bought into this, is that architecture is important to us, even though it is not Western architecture. The other thing is you just happen to purchase a property that essentially is the last city in the state of California by law. You have to build on a half acre or more, and you have a ton of open space and parkland. It's something that we really value. So everybody on this council, you got 3 Norco high graduates sitting here. We've lived here literally probably over 100 years, the 5 council people. I mean, longer, actually longer. I mean, probably 200 years collectively. So I just want you to know that we value the architecture. I too have great concerns about no EIR, even though I understand why it's not there. I have concerns about the drainage. More than anything, this is a huge building being placed in the middle of a neighborhood. You know, Horsetown USA, all those things, horses, all that, I have all that on my property, but ultimately, people live here. They purchased homes here. They expected a certain lifestyle, and that's what they bought. This isn't a city where when a new council comes in, all of a sudden, we're just gonna change who we are. Somehow, luck, fighting, we have maintained an oasis in the middle of a sea of concrete. Look all around us. Somehow we've done that. And so, unfortunately for me, I have great concerns about putting so much stuff on the open space. I'm very worried about the drainage, but more than that, I just don't see how this building is conducive to that particular area. So I too, for the design and for some of the other reasons which other people have talked about, I can't support this either.
Well, I'm sure you are pro-development. And as I said, we opened this dialogue.
Well, we are, you know, one of the things that we are is we actually are very pro-development as long as it serves our lifestyle.
Right.
Part of the reason that we don't have great streets is because we only have 7,000 rooftops. It's by design. You know, people can claim they have the answer to that, but the reality is we only generate $1.4 million in property tax, which means we sacrifice for this lifestyle. And so we fight to bring in the right businesses that won't hamper our lifestyle. It doesn't mean that every religion, every creed, no matter what, can come here. It's just that that building in that particular spot. I'm with Greg. What Greg was really asking you is, why the heck would you spend so much money in such a terrible site to put that building? There's lots of hills where you can put that dome and nobody would care. But you chose a city where it's probably not going to fit. And so for me, my personal opinion is that I think it just should be on. And that literally, I think that I would prefer to uphold the planning commission. Do we have any other questions for the applicant? Do you have something to say?
I don't have any further questions.
Because I have to close the public hearing and bring it back to council so we can discuss. Do you have any questions for us? Do you have any questions for the?
Yeah, Your Honor, you know, just to have a place over there is not acceptable, that's what he's saying?
I'm concerned about the size of it. I'm concerned of the drainage, but more than anything, you know, when people moved to that area, I believe at least 2 of those churches were still there. A third one, I believe, was there before the second phase of the Bluffs. And I think now people have a right, okay, they accepted that because they bought. But now what we're going to do is we're going to take a over 4 acre parcel and we're going to put something very, very large that literally is going to change views, it's going to change a lot of things. And it just bothers me that, and I have to admit, that literally you want to create a lighthouse so it can be seen from a distance. And that's why I'm very careful. I want to make sure that everybody understands that there's nothing in this building that is intrinsic to your religion.
That we are willing to change whatever you like.
I totally understand that, but nevertheless, you still have to accommodate 180 people, and I suspect it will probably be more. Anyway, I don't have any more questions for you. Anybody else have questions? Unless you have questions for us, I'm going to close the public hearing, then I'm going to bring it back to council, and we're going to make a decision or decide what we want to do.
Yes, sir, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well,
Yes, go ahead, Bruno.
Is it, you ready for a motion?
I have to close the public hearing.
Oh, I thought you already did.
Yeah.
we really thank you for your time, for your input. As I said, we're more than welcome to have a dialogue. If you want a smaller building, something we can work out, go to a structural committee. We can work together and make something happen. I mean, they have a vision when they look at this site. It's a heat site. I don't think it's ever is going to be developed for something else. I mean, that may be the best fit for it, in relation to the churches there. But if really you don't like the building, it's too big, we can work together, we can make something to keep your community and you guys happy.
All right, well, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
So is there anybody else that is, all cards are gone, so I'm now going to close public hearing, bring it back to council. Council comments, motions?
Can
Yes.
I do have.
Go ahead. Okay, Ted, go ahead.
Just because I always get in the middle there. Being on the planning commission for several years, I had the privilege of working with the commissioners that are there now. Probably one of the smartest guys that I knew on the planning commission was Chafarian. The man's an architect. Builds, he's in Dubai more than he is probably home. He understands it, and the one thing I really respect working with him was his vision of how to put things properly in the proper space.
Right.
He's on the architectural review committee. He saw things that, as a planning commissioner, I didn't see, but he did, because he was an architect, and he's got that training. And so he noted, and this is from the minutes that were on there, we all have these. The property is not the right size and shape to place this type of project on it, adding that the project can't be accepted as presented. And that's his opinion, and I respect that a whole lot because of who he is. What bothers me is that we got this new project. It didn't go through ARC, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
It has not been to the planning commission.
right.
It is not, I don't know if it's been before your staff.
Skipping the planning commission.
No, sorry.
Elma saw it, okay. As far as I'm concerned, send it back to the planning commission, like guys like Jafari and the rest of the crew, look at it again, and bring it back. That way, if they want to change it again, they change it. But that's what I would look at, because of what they sent us up here, United, they want to work with us. I'm not for it or opposed it, but I think council member Grunmeyer had the right idea, is we have a procedure, we need to follow the procedure, send it back to them, this wasn't done right, needs to go back there and do it right, and then we can go from there, what they decide. So,
Greg?
So I won't tell you any of your fairy tale stories, so. Steve, on whichever council chooses, that we have a couple of choices, but even with a denial, that the project can wait a year and come back with new fees, new submittal. We have that year time frame on that denial. There's also, if you go without prejudice, they don't have to wait the years, they have to pay the fees. Is there any other condition that comes about where you still have to wait a year?
No, the only time you have to wait a year is if you uphold the planning commission's denial.
Well, the way I look at this, and what I always try to bring it back to, is what we have for findings that we made. All the speakers that gave their input, helped answer some of these questions for me, and the applicant. So, if I may, Mayor, I just want to give 3 reasons.
Yeah.
My motion, that, and how I look at this is how we determine our findings and if those findings can be made. First one looking at was the requested conditional use permit will adversely affect the general welfare of the persons residing or working in the neighborhood. felt that was addressed by all the speakers, and there seems to be an impact to the neighborhood and the residents that live there. Second is the requested use will adversely affect the adjoining land uses. I think we discussed plenty of that with traffic and drainage, and so I can see that finding. And then third, the size shape of the site proposed for the use is not adequate to allow the full development of the proposed use in a manner that not detrimental to that particular area. And it goes back to my last question is why this site? It just seems so intensively used and design for this project. So based on those three findings that I think are legitimate and that can be made, my motion is to uphold the Planning Commission's denial of this project.
Second, under discussion.
Yeah, but
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay. So Berwin seconded.
Councilmembers Grunmeyer.
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Newton.
Yes.
Mayor Bash.
Yes.
That motion carries.
what does that mean?
Moving on.
Planning's tonight.
Thank you for all that attended. I know this was very difficult for some of you. Thank you for all your comments. Moving to council. City council, do we have any city manager staff communications at this moment? Andy? Yes? Yes?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce to you, staff is not aware of this yet. I have a graduate management student sitting in the audience, Arturo Garcia, who's a graduate of University of California, Riverside. Anyways, we have him here through the WR fellowship program. He will be interning for the city of Norco from now until March of next year. Be getting 960 hours free to the city of Norco. Those hours will be paid by WR. So they have this program that we applied for, and we are fortunate to get Arturo among all the students that applied, and I will be introducing him to staff next week. And he's so conscious that about doing this job for the city of Norco that he showed up to the city council meeting tonight. I was not expecting him here. I'm glad to have him here. He already is showing his dedication to the city of Norco.
He wants to talk. Go ahead.
My name is Arturo Garcia, but you guys can call me Art for short. I'm a graduate from University of California, Riverside, Political Science, Law and Society.
Political science.
Yes. So my long-term goals is to go to law school, so I'll be applying, taking the LSAT this September, hopefully begin fall 2017. But for now, I just want to get this experience with Norco and be an asset to City of Norco. Whatever you guys need me to do, I'll do it. I just want to make Norco better and
That's what I was thinking.
help the residents, help myself.
Listen, you should introduce yourself to former Mayor Azevedo over there. She was one of the people responsible for the program that hired you, so thank you. Very nice to meet you. Do we have any other comments from staff? Yeah, please.
Kevin, this was brought up earlier under public comments, and I'm glad they did because it reaffirmed what I said, and I know the gal sitting back here wanting to clean her room. This past weekend has been the worst weekend. My poor dog and horses. One night ain't so bad. It was 4 nights. 4 nights. My poor 150-pound Mastiff wanted to knock me over all the time. My problem here is, and I got nothing against what the sheriff's department did, I understand, I used to work for them, I know how responses the 4th of July, you can't be everywhere, you can't take care of every firework that goes off. Fire can't do it, they're a responsive agency, they do it. But somehow or another, we have got to get with, we've got a year to work on this. And Andy, I'm going to look at it back to you. Our code enforcement has an administrative citation. It says code enforcement officers, peace officers, building officials shall be considered as enforcement officers as defined under section of the Muni Code. The city council or city manager may designate additional enforcement officers. We got to make this code stick. We got to put some teeth into it. All night long, till 2 and 3 in the morning. It's ridiculous. And my feeling is that we need to work with the sheriff's department, county supervisors, and somehow or another over the next, hopefully, the next 6 months, to put some teeth into this thing and get it to where you guys drive up. It doesn't have to be the person doing it. It's the property owner that's responsible for it. And my feeling is, Andy, we need to agendize this and get some teeth in this ordinance.
Second.
Start here somewhere.
Councilmember Brennemeyer? Hannah? Hoffman?
Yes.
Newton? Bash?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Yeah, great. Speak into your microphone.
Sorry.
I believe the lieutenant wanted to make a comment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand the problem. Obviously, everyone knows that I'm here as well. I never leave Norco, with the exception of when I travel outside the city, so I understand the challenges. But what I think we need to understand is the challenges law enforcement faces when we have these issues. The last 2 years, I've started an aggressive campaign trying to educate the public. We want people to know the consequences, specifically in an animal lifestyle keeping area, the consequences associated with the loud explosions. So I started a pretty aggressive media campaign on our Facebook, and I know that that did get shared and forwarded. It included the consequences, but also from the animal's perspective and some of the other things. But during the last 2 years, I've also assigned a team of deputies to go out and look for the violations. Here's the challenge. We get overwhelmed with the calls because so many calls are occurring. We also get reports of fireworks that are occurring from other cities, and obviously there's not much we can do about that. Well, there's really not anything we can do about it. By the time people call us and tell us that there's fireworks, it's over. And we get there, there's nothing there. And some of the instances we found that people are actually in their backyard, and so there's no evidence. So it just understanding that there are challenges for law enforcement, we have to look at that moving forward, but we do work very, very hard. Deputy Robertson in the back of the room there can also attest to the challenges we faced, because he saw them going off and he tried to drive to them and he couldn't find them. So I think that we just need to understand there are challenges there. It's not perfect, and we have to look at educating the public and hoping to get buy-in from the citizens of Norco to take a more proactive stance in hopefully understanding the consequences and not adding to the problem. Because we do have a lot of challenges enforcing we were prepared to enforce it, it's just finding them and getting to them in time. And that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Anything else? This meeting is adjourned.